late, or is it, it's like I have a lecture, but I don't know if you said it was 18 or, we always struggle with attendance. So who knows? Or should I just
Yeah,
talk?
I think we'll get started just to give you enough time and let people chime in. But are you good with that?
Yeah, sure. I
Okay.
don't know how to pronounce Shushi and I'm sorry, I'm going to struggle with the names. I'm definitely cameras and mics on and jump in. So if you're there and you want to, feel free. You do not need to keep yourself on mute unless you have a barking dog, and even then, I don't mind too much. Um, yeah, and I encourage questions at any point. In fact, it makes it easier for me not to talk constantly. And I can't monitor chat, although right now it's pretty small, but feel free to use chat for your own purposes, but it just gets too challenging for me if I'm talking. And I don't teach on, I started teaching on Zoom in COVID, which was, whoa, a learning process. But I still actually do teach periodically. In fact, teaching at UCLA next week on Zoom. But I'm always a little more rusty because I am it's all in-person classes now. But I am delighted to be here. It's always exciting to meet students that aren't already my own students or other instructors and professionals. I love it. I am, I don't know, I'm sorry, I should have read what was released to you quick more, but I am a career film producer and television producer. And in 2020, February 2020, I was in southern Spain in Almeida, and this was about as far south in Spain as you could see Africa. But the world decided we were not going to shoot our film, and we were going to stop prep. And it took me a number of days to get back to Portland. And I was among those people who I traveled about 300 days a year. And I did career producing for 24 years. I think I was getting a little confused. Of which, again, I was roughly on the road about 300 days of those years shooting or in LA. And I was just one of those rare people in COVID who looked at my living room and thought, wow, this is a really nice place. And these children of mine are really nice people. And I loved it. I mean, there was certain, I was just like, this is great. This is, wow, I'm not on an airplane. I'm not cold. I'm not wet. And I decided, I was lucky enough to have PSU, which is Portland State University, have kind of courted me for some time to come to teach, but I didn't have enough time. So I had called them and I said, now I am wildly available. There is nothing more I'd like to do than teach. And I started, and it's been 3 years. So I pivoted. I love it. I absolutely love it. In fact, I still feel like I produce because I was just saying to Jonathan, I now produce my students' work. In a capacity that's very much the same. I also get to teach screenwriting, which I love. I worked for 25 years. There's nothing I love more than working with writers. So that's been great. So that's what I do now. And I do have a little presentation. I'm happy to jump in. I'll share my screen. I think you can still see me. I always think visuals. So that's me, producer with a capital P. I always tell my students, if you're on set and you see someone with those things around their neck, and I don't mean the snake, I mean the cans, that's going to be a VP on set. We don't wear radios. It denotes somebody who has access to the audio that's going on, and that's a very privileged position. But when you see those cans around someone's neck and the little thing, you can guarantee they're a VP on set. They're going to be a director, producer, potentially a studio executive or a guest. So easy way. Snake is just for fun. I always say interesting things about me. There's really not that many. But I'm from New Jersey, which is not the production capital of the world. In fact, growing up, I never occurred to me that I would become a film producer. It certainly did not occur to my family. I did not go to school for it. So if you are a student or you're in Jonathan's classes right now, you are already far and away higher than more education than I've ever had. I have 3 girls. I spend my entire life skiing, and I happen to love baseball, and it's back in season, so I'm happy now. I always ask my students if they can identify a film at the start of every class. They must You must be a consumer of film or media, and television and streaming and OTTs, all awesome too. Anyone can identify this film? I feel like Jonathan, if you're an director, like
I
normally
know.
nobody gets
Now
it.
I'm really on the spot.
And Sushi, yeah, hey, Sushi, I don't know how to say your name, but yeah, feel free. Anyone jump in? Nobody? Sometimes I give the second slide, which should make it easier.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen it, in my defense. So yeah.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
It's the most important film, and this particular shot is what pretty much started my career, so I always include it. I always start it with every class, and I really never get anyone get the first slide.
Wait, is that the test that they take to figure out which ones are replicants?
It's the Esper Sand sequence. When Decker puts the photograph that he found of Zora into the machine, and over here he's going to start blowing it up, which is that, you know, you see this the graph. He's going to start blowing it up and see Zora in the background, and there's going to be a tattoo that tells that there's going to be a little bit of flickering, which is part of the Decker as a replicant thing. Why it's significant, so it's a great sequence, no one ever recognizes it. Why it's significant to me and how I came to doing what I did is when I was an undergraduate at Wellesley, where I met Beth, I was doing a Cinema 100 class my senior year, just so I could take an easy class and get an A and not show up very often. And that did happen. Although I showed up, I actually ended up showing because I liked it. But I ended up writing a paper on Blade Runner because I thought it was revelatory. It changed. I just thought the film blew my mind, and I'd never seen anything like it. I didn't have any kind of cinema knowledge. I couldn't stop loving it. So I wrote a paper on it. Luckily, I published it as an undergraduate. And to this day, it's still taught in syllabuses around the world. So that's my sequence. But I would not have gone into film if it hadn't been for Blade Runner and starting that path. These are a couple, I'm going to keep going fast, but these are a couple selected credits. They're not all of them. So some are better than others. But I actually started doing Fear. My first producing was MTV's Fear. But a few of my TV and feature credits, some just random set pictures. I never pay much attention to the volume and millions of photos, but this is a lot from Belfast and Ireland, Dracula Year Zero. These are various different productions, Blumhouse pictures I've done, me listening to 12 hours of gunfire, just awful. I have some things to say about working in the movie business and television. I always say that all sets are either too wet, too hot, too cold. Please do remember these things. I've never had it not be true. And although my job is often considered incredibly glamorous, there's really only one day that it's glamorous. A lot of the times it's just brutal hard work. And this is me in Spain, by the way, where I have that slide. I put a bunch of pictures and my kids on my laptop. It's because I was stuck in a ravine for 6 hours after the scout van got stuck. And I would say that that's probably the 20th time that I've been on a scout where I've gotten stuck in a ravine. So it's not glamorous. This is the only time it's glamorous. Red carpet, that's it. The rest of the time, it's pretty hard work. And I'll go quickly because I hate red pictures of me. But I always want to make sure that people understand that it is not about this day. It's about all the other days. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about producers. I think sometimes we're the least understood role in anything, honestly, but certainly in film and to a lesser extent, television. I often get the question, if I say, what do producers do? Almost 100% of the time, someone will answer, we get the money. I'm here to dispel that. Producers can be a part of money, but I myself have never contributed $1 to any production I've ever worked on. I've never raised $1. And because I'm not a line producer, I cannot actually authorize $1 being spent. Although I am the top of the production. I always tell people, please remember that whether or not you agree that the pinnacle of achievement is an Academy Award, that's irrelevant. The one that picks up the best picture, the final award, that is the producer. It is not the director. It is the director if the director also takes a producing credit. But a lot of directors don't. It generally is the producer. So we are the ones, we are actually in charge of the whole thing. And at all festivals, I mean, you're still going to have directing rewards, but it's going to be the producers. I often ask people, I say, how many producers can be on a film? And in theory, on a television show, anyone know how many? What number you think?
Approximately 6,000.
Yes, actually infinite. The answer is infinite. I believe the record for film is 55. I haven't checked that in a long time though, probably 3 years. Maybe it's at 75 now. Honestly, producing credits come in all shapes and sizes, and they have all different kinds of meetings. I am what's called a boots on the ground creative producer with a capital P, in film. So that's one right here. We are also called creative producers, although we're all aiming for the capital P. That's one of the last credits on the main title sequence. It's the most prestigious. The Academy Award allows 3 main stage producers for a best picture. If there's 5, that means that 2 of them cannot go up for the best picture. You can lobby and push for a 4th, and we did that successfully on Social Network, but it was surprisingly difficult. Executive producers can be a real gamut. I cannot emphasize enough that Googling this does not yield the right answers. It's shocking how much information is wrong on what producers do in film. Executive producers can be anything. They can be me, even though I was the boots on the ground producer on Dracula Untold, or is it, that's what it's called? Untold, Dracula Untold? It changed the title so many times. And I was there for 9 months straight in Ireland, and my boss, who was the capital P, showed up twice for 3 days each. I still ended up with executive producer. So I'm still doing the role, but it's hierarchical, and I hadn't quite gained my wings and gotten my P yet. So it's gonna be hierarchical. Executive producers often can be the line producer because they've worked their way up and they no longer want that credit. Line producer is the base credit. A line producer on a film is in charge of budget and the line, which is a line item. They're also pretty much in charge of everything that is functional and practical for a movie set. So all our equipment, all our crew, our budget, our schedule, they are the ones who can authorize that dollar. My best friend and the person that I need to work with every single day of my life as a film producer is my line producer. We are best buds, never enemies. That's a mistake. And we're the ones that make the movie go forward. Again, could also be executive producer. And all these credits can really be anything. They can be the actor's best friend who we never meet, and never see on set and shows up at the premiere. They can be money. Executive producers can also be the money. It could be somebody who invested. It can be somebody who is brilliantly hardworking, who is just a little bit younger in their career and not quite graduated hierarchically into the higher titles. The co-producer could literally be the hardest working producer on set. It doesn't matter, but it's kind of an infinite number that you can have. But in film, you're aiming for this one. That's the one you want. TV, totally different. TV producing in television is a writing credit. So a showrunner is a writer. We are not writers. I do not write. I'm not a screenwriter. The majority of producers are not screenwriters. They're different. In television, those who create and run a show, they're the show creators, the showrunners are writers, and they take executive producer as the main, most important credit. So they are showrunner, executive producers, and then every other producer title you see on a series as it sort of scrolls, or maybe you hit skip on Netflix and you don't watch it. But if you see all those little producers credits running under a television show, they're all writers. They're all part of the writer room. So it works very, very differently in television to film, although a showrunner EP is pretty synonymous in terms of work as the producers, although again, they come from a writing background. Here's me often trying to find a seat and do my job no matter where I am. That chair looked comfortable at the time. Everything starts and stops and ultimately must be resolved by the producer. We are in charge. The director works for us, although I am there to facilitate the director's vision and make sure that she has every single thing they need, every resource, every department, every crew, everything that can get them be able to realize their vision and deliver a wonderful film. They're more like the captain of the ship, but I actually run the ship. It's hard to get the right analogy. We are also responsible for everything. So you must know a little bit about every single department. If you don't know enough about lighting and you don't know enough about which is GAF, if you don't know anything about production design, if you don't know about SFX, you can't talk to your crew and really interact and understand what their problems are. When they come with a problem, you have to speak their language. So sometimes we're a jack of all trades and sometimes a master of none, because I actually do not need to rig a squib, which would be SFX, but I do need to know what a squib is and what the time it's going to take. We also must able to see the big picture and kind of not overwhelm us. Jonathan and I had a brief discussion about drama, films, specifically days during production. It's chaotic. It's difficult. We do everything in our power not to have it be so, but it's hard. It's intense. It's long hours. We are always chasing time. We are always having problems with money. There are always just problems. So you do have to be able to zoom out, manage things, see the big picture, fight for the film, and not just sometimes run away, which I've never done, but some days you're like, ah, man, I got to go into nursing. I call ourselves storytellers. You can say filmmakers, but I don't think that encapsulates, streaming and series and television. We're all storytellers. Also, TikTok, you're a storyteller, socials, the things that you create as short films, you're all storytellers. It is most important to understand that it's the three most important things to being a storyteller are the people, process, and collaboration. If you can't understand collaboration in working in film or television, and if that's not your jam, you want to be a solo person and go, it's not for you. It's just not. It's not going to work out. You want to understand it. You want to understand people. You want to understand the process. That is what we are. That's also screenwriting too. I put some film stills for you guys of some of mine, which I've never done before, but it looks awfully nice seeing Luke in his leather. And again, stop me if you have any questions. So again, it's all about collaboration. We do not work solo, although we are the top of the ship and we do run it. We have our crew who are invaluable to us, and often multiple partner producers. I've never worked on a film where I haven't had partners, and there's not one single film or television show I could have done without those partners. A few of them I could have probably done without, but the other ones were excellent. Making a movie specifically involves hundreds to thousands of people. And sometimes it just is really never enough. You just never feel like you have it. So it's a lot of learning about collaboration. When I work with my students and we're working on student films, I make them work in crews. I make them have roles. I make them understand that that we're all producing a film. We're all making a film. That you must work with your crew. You must understand them. It's really important to me that you learn collaboration. So again, I'm a creative producer. That is the path I went. If you wanted to be a line producer, you would go up through production. You would go up through the production department, and you would be on the crew side of things. If you are a creative producer, you're going up through, if you're going to be a producer with a capital P, you're going to go up through creative, which means that we're trained in story. Creative is story, actors, directors, screenwriting. It's what creative, the film is the creative vision. So we are in charge of learning how to realize that creative vision. And generally speaking, creative is always going to trump everything because creative is what yields the project. So while a line producer, again, is my best friend, he or she is also, although they're watching budget, they're working hard, they're in service of creative as well. But I am what's called a creative producer. And I often get this a lot. So creative producers, we got to start with material. That's where it goes. Would anyone know where material and where movies start? There's a hint on this slide.
The scripts.
Exactly. It actually can come from anywhere. It can come from ideas, from articles, from books, from video games, from comic books. It can come from just a human with a good story, life story. It can come from podcasts, but you actually can't do anything when it comes to a television show, a series, a movie. I would argue a short, although there's some experimentals that maybe reality, all of them, you must have a script. That's where it starts. You must. So everything starts with a script. And the biggest part of creative producing, the largest chunk of creative producing is developing that material. because if it starts with a script, you can't do anything. We can't get to set when we don't have a good script. We can't hire crew. We can't start hiring actors. We can't do any of that stuff. We have to have a good script. So if you want to be a creative producer, you need to understand development. It's critically important. It's the biggest part of our job. I think people think, and I was in the later parts of my career, lucky enough to be moving set to set to set, but I also spent 25 years developing scripts. At many points in my career, I was shepherding between 50 and 70 projects solo at any given time. The average amount of time it takes from script to screen in development is 7 years. I have seen it happen in a year and a half. That's about as fast as I've ever heard it. And the Angelina Jolie, like, water movie where they're floating, it's a true story that she directed. That took 30 years to get from screen. It can take 30 to 50 years. So there are other insults. So development, the primary job as your producer is to identify material, specifically great material. Next, you must secure rights, and this can be simple as maybe it's your friend's script and you're all good to go. Great. Or it can be really tough and time consuming and costly because it's a video game or it's a book or it's anything that can take years. That alone can take years. Rights securing in Hollywood for big productions generally takes 2 to 3 years. And then the big one in bold is you must be able to develop that material to screen. If it's a script, it still is going to need notes and development. And that process is rarely to never quick, and it can take a lot of time, and honestly an infinite amount of time, because the majority of scripts that are developed to go to movies do not become movies. The percentage is quite low. It might be something like 1,500 to 1. I don't know. It changes by years and by studios, but Warner Brothers generally maintains an active roster of 4,000 to 6,000 scripts to make something around 20 to 23 movies a year. So, and that changes every year based on budgets. If Ridley does a really expensive one or that, then, or if they throw out a couple genres and horrors, they can make 4 of them. It changes a bit. So here's my little list on things to know about producing. I'm gonna change around because I can't see my own stuff. This is true of almost all crew. If you're going to be a director, a writer, an actor, we're all pretty much contractors. My first W-9 job has been at University of Oregon. I have never had a regular salary paycheck that came weekly. I have never had traditional health insurance. I have occasionally when I was at Sony, Fox, DreamWorks, when I was on deals, I certainly had health insurance come with my job, but I was still a contractor. So it was never the really good insurance that all the other employees got. Like at Sony, I had a red badge, which meant I was a contractor. If you were a real Sony employee, you had a blue badge. So we're sort of the red badgers. So we are all freelance or independent contractors. Our taxes are different the way we do our things. This is a big one, the second one. And that's a tough one to understand. But while screenwriters get paid the minute they start working because we need those scripts, while directors get paid from prep, while crew gets paid from the second they start working, producers don't earn a dime until day one of production. So if I'm telling you that it takes 7 years to develop pretty much any script to screen, I am actually not getting paid for that 7 years. Not at all, like nothing. And whoever was developing the one for 30 really got less. So what you do is you have to survive financially, you need to get deals, meaning people that are going to pay you for your material, pay you for your expertise, pay you for your ability to work for them and make them movies. And they come in a variety of deals, studio deals, first looks, exclusive, housekeeping. That's how we pay ourselves. And that's where you get production companies that are at studios. There's millions of them. There are ways absolutely to support yourself as a producer. If, however, you see yourself as wanting to go into being ultra indie producer, doing your super, Kelly Reichardt films or less than even smaller ones than that, because she's really, really successful. And that's your path that you have a dream of. It's going to be challenging to support yourself. They don't have deals for those independent producers. You're going to have, it's trouble. It's hard. It's harder. It's easier if you're working for a deal with Netflix, or you're working for that. So it's tricky. For the most part, we must find our own material. That's tricky too. We spend about 100% of our time looking for great material. I got a lot luckier as I got older. We say older and younger as both an age, but also a career. So older in my career, I was no longer what's called a baby. We're a baby when we start. And if you were to start, you'd be called a baby. Doesn't matter how old you are. But as I got older in my career, I got a lot more work for hire, which meant that they'd bring me on a project to go produce for them. And it was a little easier because you're starting. However, most of the time I was bailing someone out, which was not the best. And if you don't live, die, and breathe development, if you don't love working on story, if you don't just have this passion to be a storyteller and put the time and effort into developing screenplays and just doing that work, don't do producing. There's millions of other jobs in entertainment and media and storytelling. In fact, I love teaching them all. There's so many, there's thousands. Go into post, it's amazing, you'll be warned. But there's so many jobs, and you do not ever need to focus on only being a director, a screenwriter, an actor, or a producer. That is not true. And a lot of people wouldn't want to wish being a producer on their worst enemy. It requires it. So a couple things for that. I actually pulled a couple of these off the internet when I teach producing because I was so surprised by them. I don't need to pull that people think producing is glamorous off the internet. I'll tell you that they think that. I can just say, no, it's not. It's 12-hour minimum. All of us work 12-hour days, 5 days a week. I'm a producer. I'm working 6 to 18, no matter what. That's 5 days a week. But by the time you do your calls, by the time my call time on Friday is 7 o'clock at night, I'm wrapping at 7 a.m. That means I'm sleeping Saturday because I just got off at 7 a.m. I only get Sunday off, and then my call time is 6 a.m. on Monday. It's a lot of hours, a lot of work. You're also outside. I always think it's a revelation to some of my students that when they see a really elaborate, night scene downtown in some amazing city with cars and homeless and all these things, you're like, your crew's all there, and they're often freezing. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. When you see people in the snow, you see Leonardo DiCaprio trekking through the woods in The Revenant, or you see people up on something, your crew is right back there. We're all there, and we're cold, and we're, it's tough, and we're wearing a lot of gear. So it's very, 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 very physical. And you're standing all the time. You're not allowed to sit on set. I am, but I don't. So these are other misconceptions that you're responsible for raising money. Again, this can be true. It's not true for most producers. And I really can't stand that thing. This one I got off the internet. That was weird. This one I got off the internet. I didn't know this, but a lot of people said on a lot of websites, it said to be a producer, you need to have started as an actor. I don't even know that to be true for anyone I know. So I thought that was an interesting one. I think they must be referring to like Brad Pitt becoming a producer, or, Margot Robbie having a company. You don't need to be. You need a secondary degree, not true at all. You don't need a secondary degree for anything in crew or entertainment at all. You need a background in business, finance, or entrepreneurship. Nope. I have a feeling a background in business probably helps everyone in this world, but you certainly don't need it. I hear a lot, this certain type of personality. Producers come in all shapes and sizes. I have some producers that are so calm and so elegant and so restrained, and they're quiet talkers. And, and then there's the bombastic producers that are maybe more the cliche. I'm from Jersey, I talk loud. We kind of come in all shapes and sizes. You do not need to have known someone in the business to get your job. I say that for everybody. I came from Jersey. I moved to California, and I actually did not know a human in the state. I'd never been west of the Mississippi. I had no connection to anyone, and I'm not alone. I'm not some random tale that the majority of us do not. If you have a nepotistic connection, use it. If you have a cousin who, do it, great. That'll help you, but you don't have to. And you're male. We get that a lot. Female producers represent 8 to 12% of all producers. It shifts a little bit. The problem with that is that if you're a writer on a TV show, you're getting a producing credit. So if you're a female and you have a producing credit, you're lumped in with the female producers. you're really not producing in the way that I define it. So we're even smaller. We're going to be still, but it's changing all the time and getting a bit better. Anyone have any questions? I'm like powering through it. We only have such a few number. Things you do need to be a producer: taste. We can't teach that. I know it's weird. We can't teach it. I teach screenwriting. I teach development. I teach producing. I've taught legions of assistants over the years. You either have taste or you don't. You're just gonna have to read a lot. You're gonna have to figure it out. It's hard. The other ones we can: a passion to tell stories, an ability to identify talent, and that extends to actors, directors, crew. You have to see the good people that you can surround yourself with and make something great. It's really important. Creative thinker can solve problems quickly. If problem solving, in fact, decisive, immediate problem solving is not your thing, this is not the job for you. In fact, a bad decision, there's an old thing, like a poor decision made quickly on set is almost always better than the right decision made very slowly. Like it's a funny thing. We have time as our enemy, so you have to just go for it. And sometimes it's not going to be exactly the right decision, but you don't have time to sit around waiting and like debating it and dithering, or it's not going to work. The ability to lead and cheerlead, again, decisiveness, able to act under enormous pressure and stress. I can't emphasize how much this is on set and difficult and over the years, and also just not even on set. You got to be able to handle a lot of stress. Producers are multitaskers. We have to understand everything at the same time, be big picture. We have to be able to be across everything. It's tricky. So if you're not a good multitasker, again, not the right job. Editing would be good for you. There's lots of jobs that would be amazing that don't require any of these things. Being thick-skinned, probably everybody who works in the entertainment business or media does need to be thick-skinned. You have to be able to hear your work eviscerated. You have to be able to listen to constructive notes, give constructive notes, have people behave badly. We're doing a lot better with Me Too now. They used to behave really badly, but have people lose their tempers and say inappropriate things. And it is what it is. It's a stressful environment. People do lose their cool. Be a good communicator. And then my last one, work tirelessly for insane, often long hours and often in tough conditions. And when I say tough, I tried to avoid it later in career, but like when I was working for MTV, we had like a flooded hacienda set that we had to work in rural Mexico for 3 days straight. And we didn't have another set. And where we were, we had to work for 12 hours with our feet in 12 inches of water. I mean, it's so ridiculous, but there was no other option. Like we all got swamp foot. Like it's just disgusting, luckily that was MTV and they're a little harder to work. But like, there's things where you're just like, oh my God, like pretty tough. I thought I would end a little, I know that, that this is only be a quick part. I actually devote a couple of classes to this. But I pulled my slides together. If you're starting out, finding jobs and internships, it can be daunting and overwhelming. Maybe some of you guys already are doing that. The best sites that I have found for internships and the ones that we use at my university, where we have a pretty robust, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, so far, entertainmentcareers.net's the best one. All the best stuff. It is a pay site. It costs $5 a month or something like that. They do have a couple deals. I hate telling my students who are always struggling with money that they should have to pay to get an internship but for whatever reason, they must have done a good job marketing to entertainment companies and really locking in. They seem to have the best info. It is what it is. These ones are not expensive, and I think they're free. They tend to have okay information. You can find jobs on them, but has not been as successful for us. You're looking for anything, if entry level, you're looking for this word right here. See that word assistant? You can see my marker. You're looking for the word assistant. That's where you're going to start. Entertainment's hierarchical. You can have an MBA from Harvard you could be like a lawyer who's already passed bars. If you decide you want to pivot and go into entertainment and do something else, you're going to start with the word assistant in your title. That's how it's going to work. You might move up a little faster than somebody who is 21 fresh out of school and maybe doesn't have the experience and breadth, but you're going to start with that word assistant. we're going to teach you. It's mentor-mentee type teaching, and that's how it works. For
So
crew,
if someone is gonna do a search, like, would they want to search, like, what are some examples of entry like assistant roles, like they might?
any desk, so assistant to blah blah blah, that's called a desk. So assistant to producer, blah blah blah, assistant to agent. Agencies are excellent to work at. Working in lit, especially instead of talent. But production companies, you know, there's personal assistants, which mean that you're going to work for like a star or a director. But basically, a big creative assistant would be the best one. You're looking for something where you're going to really work with scripts and stuff. But there's all kinds. You know, if you were to start an agency and work on a sports desk, and you really want to go into directing, I don't know how much you're going to learn as much on that. You might want to spend only a year at that at max and try to pivot over to a lit desk, which I believe stands for literature, but started so long ago that it's always just been called lit. And that means directors, writers. Talent means it's going to work with actors. But, you know, I started as assistant. I was assistant for 3 years. I was a producer's assistant. I was an agent's assistant in lit. You can reasonably expect to be an assistant about 3 years. Sometimes a little less, but not often.
Yeah, and I do remember you were reading tons of scripts at that time, right out of undergrad.
Yeah, I mean, you read a lot of scripts anytime, but I used to average about 30 a week. 110 pages, so roughly 30,000 pages of material a week. And sometimes books when I was really lucky, which were a couple thousand just to add into the mix. Many scripts for my career, you need to read overnight. So if you get 7 and they come in at 5 p.m., I'm booked till 7, I gotta work. I mean, they have to be read by 9 the next morning. You're like, cool, no sleeping for me. I read more in my first few years. I went directly out of college, 3 days. I read more in my first 3 years of working than I had read in a lifetime. The college paled in comparison to what the reading was. I happen to like reading and you get good at it. I got a little older in my career and it was more 10, 15 scripts a week. And it was always a lot easier, but yep, a lot of reading. Don't do the job if you don't want to read scripts. It's just not going to work out. These are the ones. So you want to work on sets and you want to maybe go into production design, art direction, gaff, line producing. If you want to go into the below the line, which is the crew positions, which is amazing, I can't recommend it enough. You'd be better served to head the production assistant. So production assistant and an assistant are 2 different things. When you see production assistant, that's going to be a set job that has to have that word. So they're also called PAs. You'll hear that a lot. A creative assistant or an executive assistant or a personal assistant, that's going to be on creative side. So just important to make those 2 distinctions and understand the difference. I personally never PA'd. I went straight to desks and straight through creative. All of these sites are excellent to have, or variously, to have productions in your local area. We have a really good one in Oregon, but I pulled it off because I don't think it applies to you. And I always highlight that Ava DuVernay has started Array, which is a DEI a crew site to get more color behind the camera. I think we're doing a much better job with color in front of the camera in terms of casting, but behind the camera, we still have a lot of inequity and a lot of representation issues. And I've heard Array is doing very well. I personally have never navigated it, but I do want to point it out. So those are some really good sites. And I think that's it. I wrapped it up between my 44 minutes. So happy to answer any questions and things that you might have. I can stop my share.
Thank you so much, Alissa. I know we're a small group, so this is fabulous. Good for everyone in the audience. And yeah, definitely jump on in with any questions. Yeah. Addie, you're Allison? Are you Allison, Addie, or?
Oh, no,
You're Addie. Okay. Are you in the graduate program?
Yeah, I'm graduating in the next 2 weeks with a grad degree in creative writing. So
Oh, that's cool. For like screenwriting or?
I've done a little bit of screenwriting, but it's been mostly poetry. I'm actually in the middle of, I wrote a short film, which is being produced right now in pre-production. We have some shooting dates set for the end of May, which is really exciting, just that I'm doing with some friends, which is really great. So yeah, I guess the question would be like, you talked a lot about like production, creative assistance, production assistance, and that sounds like a really cool next steps. But like from the perspective of a producer, like what other steps would you recommend for someone trying to get into screenwriting?
I mean, the screenwriting is different. If you want to be a writer, it's going to sound the most reductive and unfortunately patronizing thing that I'm ever going to say, but it's not going to change. Everyone's going to say the same thing to you. Right. That's all there is to it. Like you have to write. And you need, in terms of, there's a bunch of different adages, right? And this, so funny, I've been doing a visiting filmmaker series at University of Oregon and been lucky enough to bring a lot of my big colleagues from LA who've been doing a week on campus and teaching. And every single one of them has said exactly the same thing. So I was like, oh, thank God, I'm not, providing the wrong wisdom. The screenwriting, so that's feature length, 90 to 110. The adage is you write 10 before you write a good one. And in my 24 years of the Couch and Water tour, which means writers that I met, and I probably met 5 to 6 a day in 24 years, like a lot of writers, thousands. I never found it not to be true. I've actually, in fact, all of the executives I talked to, because we were doing these classes, and I was like, have you ever met a screenwriter who said, I sold my first script? And then everyone's, nope, it doesn't. And there's a reason. You got to get the craft, you got to learn it. It can take, writers vary. It can take a lot of time for you to write a feature. It could take a year. There are other screenwriters who are just like, they know they want to be a screenwriter. They know they need to get to 10. And one of my friends brought up a specific example who I'd forgotten about. I was like, yeah, that guy did do that. And he had gotten a law degree and his parents were apoplectic that he was going to go into screenwriting instead. And he was like, well, I have to write 10 and I'm going to succeed. So what my friend Sheldon did, this was years ago, he said, okay, I'm going to give myself 10 months in LA, like being a bartender after passing the bar in a different way. And I'm going to write 1 script a month because I know I've got to jam through this and I've got to get my life going. And sure enough, the one that he sold was the 10th. And that gave him a big career and he made millions. But I remember I was like, oh yeah, Sheldon did this, like, okay, 10 months, I could do this. That's pretty fast. But generally 10. TV writing is slightly different. You do need to write a lot of specs. They're called spec scripts, speculative. You write things a little differently in television. You go and you look at your favorite show. So if it was Last of Us or it's Fleabag, you name it, what show you're like, you write speculative episodes for those shows. So you take the characters, you take the world, you take the tone, and you start crafting your ability because you're going to try to aim to get in the writing room. You're going to try to be absorbed in the process. And then you also may pepper it in there with a couple original pilots where you totally do it. But again, it's right. And you don't, I always tell my screenwriting classes, I was like, the best thing about writing is that you're a screenwriter right now. You have a computer. For $99, you can download Final Draft as a student, and you're done. When you're a director, you need capital, you need material, you need actors, you need cameras, you need equipment. If you're an actor, you got it. Every other job, I can't think of any other job as a storyteller that can be done from your bedroom. You don't even need Wi-Fi. Like you have a laptop, you have a writer. So it is accessible to everyone, no matter where they are in the world, or even with very, very little money. So
it's actually better sometimes not to have Wi-Fi because then you procrastinate,
I was gonna say it's I say it in a lot of scripts, like, yeah, no Wi-Fi. But yeah, exactly. So again, it's tough. I'm not a writer. It's tough. You need discipline. You need talent. It's like not all of us are writers, but it is accessible to anyone. And you right now can and probably you already are, right? Your short's being made.
So how do you get your script or your spec scripts? Like, do you go to an agency
No, they won't listen to you. You never ever submit anything without, unless there's an online platform at a management company. It'll only be a management company. It won't be an agency. There
Okay.
are certain managers that may select, have like open portals that you can submit. Other than that, never do it. Once you get to your 10th or you've done a few pilots, use every resource you ever heard of. Your uncle's father's brother's kid who you do it, get them your script if you think it's good. Get it to every legitimate festival that does not have giant entry fees. Please watch for those. They're complete scams. But Nichols, the Blacklist, lots of regional ones have very reasonable. And I say to my students, like, reasonable is about $40 or $50. Like when they're into like 150 and like they can, some of them are extraordinary. You do not want to go broke submitting your stuff. Get them to the festivals that you can afford. But again, that better be good, because if it's not going to be good, it's a complete waste of $40. Like it's but get it out to everyone you know when you have that good one. And this is the thing that I say, and I know no one believes me. It's true. Great rises. And it does find its way to the right people. We have a system that works, and it's, but it rises. And the number of times in my 24-year career, in fact, it was like almost all the time, where someone would be sitting in front of me on the I had a really fancy office. They were always intimidated by that, but a beautiful couch, and sitting there like panicked, nervous. They've just written a good script. They've just been flown to LA. I've been, where are you from? North Dakota. And what were you doing before? I was a gas station attendant. Like, this like story, like, but I was writing scripts and I really loved being right, and they were so panicked. I'm like, well, how did you end up here? He's like, I don't know. I sent it to like a friend or a festival. And all of a sudden my phone rang like 3 months later. And it was so funny. That story's not unique. I know it sounds weird, but like, good rises. So you do have to trust the process. Make writer friends, have your collaboration, get your groups, especially if you're a student right now. You have all these wonderful people who are at your level who also likely share your ambition. Work with those, cultivate them, work together, make stuff. We say always be creating, ABC, like those are the ways. Good
And
question.
are the festivals also for TV pilots?
There are some, they'll be more specific. When you're a student, the student categories are far easier to win and sometimes waive the fees, or almost always have reduced fees. As soon as you're not a student, you go into the regular category. But a lot of, for screenwriting, there's a lot of short, a lot of like South by Southwest has a really cool like student category, and they do shorts. And I'm constantly pushing my students to submit, and we keep winning. I'm like, see what happens when you submit, like, like you have a shot. You can't win a festival or even get screened at a festival without actually submitting. But I always say, be careful, make sure it's reputable, make sure it's worthwhile. And the student categories are far easier to win.
No, that's awesome. Renpei, if I'm saying your name correctly, I
Sure.
hope so. Hi, do you want to chime in and let us know where you're coming from?
Yeah, Alissa, thank you for sharing. I love your energy. Yeah,
Thank you.
and actually, my situation is I've been the director several years before I came to the States. So, but it's different like industry in China. So right now I'm exploring to be a director here, and I got a like position for a documentary, working with a accounting member. But right now I'm still, sorry.
Go ahead.
Still exploring after that, where should I go? If my goal is to be a director, to skip all the crew members' positions. So what's your suggestion about that?
I mean, it's cool you're here. I have so many Chinese students who have just incredible resumes from China and did such incredible work. And it doesn't translate sometimes, like yes, absolutely. I have students who are just far and above my Chinese students. But they are starting back a little bit and learning the craft and the way the American system works, or the way how we work here. So there is that part. Make sure you're always proud of the achievements you did in China and they're on your resume, and that is all important and valuable. Learning the system here is honestly, directing is always a little harder because you need capital, because you need material, because you need crew, cast. Make ABC, always be creating, make shorts, find your friend Addie who's got a script, and work together. I can't speak to what resources you have at your school, but it's a great time when you're a student at undergrad or grad to have the infrastructure and equipment and tools and support to use them. So just use everything you can, maximize your time. Then if cost is not insanely prohibitive, especially with directing, I don't recommend this for screenwriting necessarily, and a lot of things. If you can, there's some really great individual programs, like UCLA runs a summer directing program where they bring in, and they really want, all these programs want representation. They don't want all directors coming from the same background, being the same kind of person. We know that voices are global, storytellers are global. China is important to storytelling. So making sure that if you can, some of them they have interesting cost structures, it'll be a one-off, so it'll be kind of expensive, but you're getting a ton of equipment and it's one course. You're not trying to go to grad school, which is probably more like 100, it can be a lot more. So some of them have some great ones, like USC has it. Or if NYU's if New York's your jam, or if you want to stay in San Francisco, there's probably programs. Other than that, just get out there, try to get commercial video work. Those are easier. Get in there, it's a grind that you have to just, what do we say? Diligence, perseverance, don't give up. These pithy statements that are so much easier to say than to do, but that's what it takes. If your life depends on telling stories and being a director, and you're probably not going to be happy doing anything else, go for it. Also, I don't know what your finances are. A lot of my students' finances are not great. Don't be afraid of survival jobs. Don't be afraid to go take a bartending job and a waitressing job, or writers, a lot of them want to take really odd jobs. They want to work the night shift at a gym because it's not very busy from, midnight to 6 a.m. and they can do their writing. There's jobs that I have so many filmmakers who always were trying to seek out certain jobs that they could both pay the rent, but would still allow them to do things. And don't be ashamed, never feel like that's less than, or that you're not still pursuing your dreams. It's a necessary part of how a lot of us have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Now, this has been amazing. We have just 2 to 3 minutes left. Did anyone else want to chime in with any comments or sharing where you're coming from? Shushi, would you like to let us know what you're studying or where you're at? Hi. Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Always.
There you go.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It is so interesting. And I'm also a second-year graduate student from CCA. And right now I'm also looking for a job in film industry. I think my question would be, my question is, I really like reading, and I'm wondering how can I combine my interest with my career growth, because right now I'm looking for a film development job or film distribution job. But I'm still very new to this, so I'm wondering.
Those are both great careers, and that's how I started film development, going into development. It's always going to be the most competitive because it's the most desirable if you're going to try that. Distribution is fascinating. A huge part. International global marketing. I don't mean to make assumptions, but you may speak another language. Having other languages and going to some of those companies that need that languages, they need those, because international markets are everything. Nobody cares what's going on in America for film. We don't care at all. We're the global nexus, and there's reasons that we need to track theatrical market. There's reasons, but we care about the world, and we care about what's happening in other countries. Although we still hire out of here, and LA is going to still be it's still the largest production hub by an astronomical number, but it's changing. And COVID helped us a little bit by expanding the ability to work remotely and open up avenues and really connect us in ways that we no longer all had to be in the exact same city. Exploit. I was telling my students who may speak, multiple languages or come from different backgrounds, always use that to your advantage. Make sure it's on your resume, especially companies like distribution, global marketing. They're going to need that. And you can almost always, let's say that you get a job at a foreign distribution company, and we say foreign, it always sounds so weird, but that's the word. Or international, you really want to get in development. You could still do that job for a year and probably pivot. That company may even have a development job there, or then you've got that credit, you've got those connections. I always think, you guys are graduates. I don't teach graduate schools. It's so exciting to meet graduate students. Hello. Life is ideally long, and jobs are always fluid. Like, you're going to change, you're going to move, you're going to have a job you love, and then you're going to have, after 2 years, be shocked that your learning curve has sort of stopped, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do something. So always don't ever think that the first job you're taking or a job you're taking, it doesn't perfectly fit everything and you're going to be somehow trapped. That's not how it works. Even if you told me I was going to pivot into teaching, I never would have believed you. I got an email the other day saying I could order my regalia gowns for commencement. And I just was like, wow. I was like, I've arrived. I've made movies that are blockbusters around the world, but somehow an email about getting a gown for commencement just really made me feel like I was like, oh, okay, now no. It's funny how everything will shift. So it sounds like you're off to a good start because you have interests that are very cool. And those are areas where there's lots of hiring.
Thank you.
Well, Alissa, thank you so much for your amazing presentation. I took a million notes. I think it's having your background, and I've been lucky enough to know Alissa since undergrad and visited her
First day. First day. We met on the first day at Wellesley.
The very first
with
day,
our parents.
before we even started classes. And I got to go to Belfast and see her in action on set for Dracula Untold, and meet people from all the whole team. And there's so many working parts. I really appreciate you highlighting like a lot of the different areas and how they work together, and the different sort of approaches, the different career paths there. So I want to be respectful to your time, but you're amazing, so informative. It's a small group, but I know through this recording we'll get to share it more widely. The students are all in finals, like the last week, literally, I think, of classes. So sorry,
you.
And Jonathan, thank you for joining too, as getting your insight as a fellow professor. But I think there was so much we all took in. So.
Oh, good. Well, I'm happy to come back, and it was fun. It's actually easier for small groups sometimes than larger groups. It's more intimate. So it's such a nice to meet you. I'm sure you're all going to go on to amazing things. It's possible. It's exciting. And just stay at it. You're already on the right path. And Jonathan, again, nice to meet you. You're already on the right path too.
Thank you. It's nice to be reassured. Yeah, I really appreciate your wisdom, and I look forward to sharing the video with the rest of our students. It'll be great. So thanks again so much.
Don't tell me about that part, but okay.
I won't. Yeah, I don't want to watch myself either. So that's.
I'll send out the link.
Everyone, have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.